All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Ms. Gore, will you reflect on the roll that everyone is in attendance except for Ms. Williams? And we will go ahead and jump right in and get started. I'm going to read in just a second, I'm going to read a prepared statement that's sort of going to give some historical context in case somebody wasn't privy to this and they're watching it later. The first thing I want to say is that from this point moving forward, as long as I'm chairman, we will record all of these meetings. These meetings will all be videoed. First time ever in our almost 10 years in existence that there's a need to record work sessions. So work sessions, everything is going to be recorded from now moving forward. Secondarily, I want to apologize to the staff and to the Board of Education for the urgency of this meeting. We've got some folks going out of town, and as you guys all know, we always run sort of a tight budget schedule anyway, and the town needs to have this for first and second reading, so there's no interruptions, and this has necessitated this meeting so that there are no interruptions to the employees. In particular, I want to apologize to the staff who had vacations interrupted and shortened this week. You guys know who you are. Want to apologize to the town of Arlington for the things that have gone on this week, and to everybody at ACS. The events brought to light some things that were less than shiny. And we're going to own those things, we're going to acknowledge those things, and we're just going to move forward. My mood personally is, I've been affected by this. I'm sure everyone else on the board has. Not sleeping. I believe I was texting Mr. Waddell at 4 a.m. one time. So this is upfront with everybody. I take zero joy in having this meeting and sitting up here, and for the first time in 9 years, I was not excited about coming to do school board business. I'm going to do my best to get over that, but for now my mood is extremely somber, and I'm going to try not to let that carry over. I'm going to go ahead and read this. At the end of this, this is again just some historical context of all the things that have transpired, in case people at home weren't privy. After that, I am going to make a motion. It'll be up to the board whether you second it. Once we get a second, then we can open up for further discussion, in particular about this amendment. It's starting off, the board held a public work session on May 17th regarding the board's proposed 2023-2024 budget. At that meeting, board member Kay Williams objected to the proposal to increase the salaries of board members. For those that don't know, work sessions, we don't vote on things. This work session was set back in December of last year when we set our yearly work session calendar. It was always going to be optional. I polled the board and said, hey, are you guys okay with the budget? Ms. Williams said she was not, and so I immediately scheduled the budget meeting, which was on the 17th. But just for the record, that meeting was scheduled last December, I think. All board members were present. All board members were given the opportunity to weigh in on the matter, and they did in fact weigh in. There were some excellent points. The only item discussed about the budget, the only item that anybody wanted to talk about was the increase in compensation for the board members. The discussion lasted roughly 60 minutes, and again, there was no other discussion other than this compensation. The work session was very respectful. Everyone was given lots of time to make their points. And at one point, I even stated directly to Ms. Williams that I did not disagree with anything she said. She had excellent points. On May 22nd, the day prior to our scheduled board meeting, I read in the Daily Memphian an article initiated by board member Kay Williams. This article alleged that board members, including and subsequently specifically myself, had attempted to hide the proposed increases to board member salaries. I found Mrs. Williams' comments in the news article and at the public meeting about me to be defamatory and false, fabricated to further a personal agenda. Ms. Williams' actions have created chaos and embarrassment for this board, this district, and the employees of this district. I've gotten employees that have reached out to me, as well as the superintendent, to express their frustration and embarrassment brought about by Ms. Williams' actions and comments. All of this occurred despite having a public meeting, again, where we all ferreted this out. The only thing that was discussed was the increased compensation. Just for those that don't know, to have a special called meeting, we notify the press, we publish it locally, so anyone could have attended. At the board's regular business meeting on May 23rd, I pulled from the agenda budget item for consideration. I moved it to the end after the last business item so that it could be discussed again in a secondary public meeting. The official transcript of the board meeting reflects all of this. At the point on the agenda that the budget was considered, all board members were given, again, an opportunity to weigh in. And in fact, they did weigh in and have their opinions. And that, of course, was recorded. At the conclusion of the May 23rd regular business meeting, all 5 board members, that's the only one I got. All 5 board members approved the 2023-2024 budget, which did in fact include the increase in compensation for board members. If Mrs. Williams had such a strong aversion to a compensation increase, that would have been the time to abstain or vote no. 2 days later, I think May 25th, I received a copy of an opinion of the Tennessee Comptroller's Office regarding board member compensation. This query originated with Senator Paul Rose's office. The opinion from the Comptroller's Office was requested by Senator Paul Rose at the request of someone. We don't know who. In the Comptroller's opinion, he opined that the school board can, that is CAN, can increase board members' compensation subject to budgetary approval of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, exactly like we did 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And exactly as our board proposed be done this time. However, the comptroller also opined that the board can only raise its salaries up to the same amount that it received by is received by the Board of Aldermen. The law that was referenced specifically refers to county school boards and county legislative bodies, not municipal districts or municipal legislative bodies at all. It's not mentioned in the law at all. And while the comptroller's opinions are not legally binding, it is my understanding that because of the confusion that's been created by the comptroller's opinion, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen will not approve the ACS budget as adopted on our May 23rd meeting. So I'll go off script just a little bit. I don't blame the town for this particular part. It's been quite a bit of chaos created by this, and I don't think for a second they would consider withholding our budget and to hurt our employees. But because of this, I don't blame them. These differing opinions, and you listen to your attorneys, you're going to do what they say. The word on the street is that they were not going to approve this budget. And instead of creating an issue, we had to have this meeting today. So because someone orchestrated the request for the comptroller's opinion, caused considerable confusion and chaos, not just for our board, but any and all municipal school districts in our state, our board is now in the position of having to the record raises and salaries of ACS employees and the ACS budget in general be held hostage or even erased, unless whoever the someone was gets what they want. This is not at all how governing boards are supposed to behave or work. In particular, making up things and suggesting impropriety when there was none. It's despicable, shameful behavior, and should be, as Clay Bailey stated to me personally in the Daily Memphian, brought into the light and exposed, and I could not agree more. Despite how much it sickens me to reward this type of behavior, I will not allow such behavior to deprive our employees of their livelihood or to potentially place in jeopardy the entire district's existence. It's patently unacceptable. I simply will not allow Mrs. K. Williams to hold our employees in the district hostage for a private agenda. So the thing that I had the most issue with is, other than embarrassment to this district and to our employees, is that I have to address this false accusation that Ms. Williams made both in the newspaper and up here, where she specifically stated that I had done my best, and this was a quote, that I have done my best to hide this. And at one point, and this is again a quote, at one point I even bragged about it. So we're going to clear that up. This same group right here was in the room that day, minus Ms. Williams, and I'm going to ask them if they would comment on that. Mr. Mayo, was that said in that meeting?
Dr. Viox, I don't recall that being said, and I have shared that with Ms. Williams.
You've talked to her about that?
I did.
Okay, cool. Mr. Dunn?
That was not said.
Okay, I'm going to say absolutely, as I've said in the past, that was not said. Ms. Conley?
I did not hear it said that way.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay, perfect.
our we talked about it being in the consent agenda
That's true.
because it wasn't anything that anyone else had to vote on except for us.
That's correct. And it was also stated, I would say multiple times, that if anybody, and of course this board is an experienced board, they know this, if anyone has any issue with any item on the consent agenda, you can immediately pull it. You don't even need a second. You can just say,
Right.
it comes off. And it's happened to us in the past. We've done that. We've exercised that. Mr. Benjamin, if you care to weigh in.
Despite the accusation by Ms. Williams, it was not said in our
Okay.
meeting.
I'm going to say the last thing, and I hope I never have to speak about this again, to be perfectly honest, but the last thing I'm going to say that, in particular, it was said that this was said for 4 times and then was bragged about. If, as a rational human being, I would think if it was said 4 times and bragged about, everybody would have a very clear recollection of that. So, again, I hope I never have to talk about that again, but I'm going to go ahead and make an amendment, and then we'll get it, if there isn't, in fact, a second, then we'll open it up to everyone to be able to weigh in on the events potentially, or in particular this motion, so that we can move our budget forward. So I move to amend the budget passed by our board at its May 23rd meeting to reduce the board members' salaries back to the status quo and reallocate the board member's salary increases to the board member in-service staff development account.
Second.
Okay, so we have a first and a second, and I'm going to gleefully back up and let you guys discuss this. So the heart of this, quickly, and why this, it solves all of our issues. It doesn't raise our salary, which seemed to be the overarching issue, and also the opinion of the comptroller's office. So salaries will not go up. My point, and my original point, was only so that you guys would have the opportunities to further your education and go to in-services and do things like that. In specific, in the last few years, we've sort of had to take turns doing things, going to national meetings and things like that. And so these funds will be more readily available, which was always my end goal, and I hope we use that to further our education and learn more about governance and things like that. That's the idea behind this. It will be in the funds, the same amount as the raise would have been. Okay, so shutting up.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
This money in the budget under a different name,
Yes.
is that different from like when we go to conventions and things like that and we
No,
can
ma'am.
turn in
Yes,
to
ma'am.
Jana
Yes,
to
ma'am.
request for funds?
Yes, ma'am. It simply adds that fund that we were going to use as a salary increase into that, and so that you can go to more things. COSBA's up and running now. They're going to have 3 meetings this year, which is the Consortium of State School Board Associations. It's a thing that we all kind of started. Tennessee was integral in that. So it's lots of opportunities opened up to learn and further education and do different things. What and the unfortunate reality is, and will probably come up, is that the same per diems and all that stuff applies. So unfortunately, it does free the money up to go to more things and to learn and experience more things, but likely is also going to create shortfalls in income. If you go to, I think our per diem, and the superintendent can weigh in, I think for breakfast is like $5.
No, it's
Is
a
it better?
two-day per diem now. I think there's a
Okay.
half a day and there's either half day or overnight. I think it's 30 for half day.
Okay.
And does anybody remember?
Yeah, I mean, we can look that up, but it's,
So it's
It's 30,
for half day.
and then
If you're overnight, it's 60.
okay.
Yeah.
So, and you'll know this because you've been to, as far as I remember, you've been to all of the TSBA conventions, even at the state level. I mean, you can't buy anything for $60 worth of food.
Right.
And that was sort of what all this was about. And so there will still be shortcomings, and we're still lose a little bit of money going because it's just impossible to eat pretty much anywhere.
Well, nowadays especially.
Yes, ma'am.
I have one more question,
Yes, ma'am.
please. When you were saying the comptroller
Yes, ma'am.
had been notified, and that this was gonna cause an issue for the other municipalities' boards as far as,
It can.
oh, it can,
It
okay,
can.
I didn't know.
I don't know what any other municipalities do, but this opinion is now out there. And any other, I would think if they want to try and lump in special school districts, municipal districts, anything else like that, now those people, because he made the leap that even though it doesn't say anything about those, that we're beholden to that, which is clearly not how it reads. There were two separate laws. One was in 2014, Ms. Speakman, if I'm correct, and the other was in 2022. Neither one actually addressed special school districts or municipal districts. And you could say, well, in 2014, we were newly formed, but in 2022, clearly, we were on the board. So
Right.
I don't know how all of this is going to play out, but for now, for us and for the employees, I hope this gives the mayor and aldermen some solace in passing this, and then we can continue to investigate. Anything else?
Sir,
Anything else?
no,
Okay.
thank you,
Yeah,
not
so-
yet.
Okay, hey, all right,
Something else may spark.
Right.
yeah.
So, so in essence, we're not changing the overall budget, we're not reducing the budget by this $12,000. It seemed to be a talking point at some point
Yeah.
around that we're taking money out of classrooms or whatever.
Yeah.
We're still allocating the money for board usage, is that?
That is correct.
Am I correct? in
You are correct,
understanding
100%.
that? Okay, just.
The budget was, as presented, was balanced with a pretty healthy fund balance. Again, and you guys all know this, I've said it a bunch of times, that my goal was to allow people to have that
Yeah.
opportunity to go and do other things, and this allows that to happen. But again, there will be some shortcomings as far as income goes, so that's the trade-off.
Yep.
But
Okay.
yes, that money is just going to a different account, to your in-service and educational fund. Is that the
Okay.
exact amount?
The classroom budget and all that had already been
Yes.
done, so we weren't gonna affect that anyway,
No, ma'am.
right?
No, ma'am, not at all.
Okay.
And again, and you know this because you've been through this a couple of times, the needs of the buildings were sort of, they sort of ferret that out first, and then the building level administrators, of which obviously you were one, come to the superintendent and say, well, this is what I think I gotta have, and this is what I'd love to have. So all of that stuff is ferreted out, and it is, in my opinion, extremely unfortunate that we can't give teachers money to stock their classrooms, but unfortunately, we can't in the budget. But no, none of that was ever going to be affected. As far as I know, superintendent, all the building level administrators were pleased with everything that was coming their way.
I believe so. They got everything included in the budget that they don't that they had asked for.
Yeah.
But to your point, Ms. Conley, you can't pass part of the budget and you have to pass all of it at one time. And if
Right.
this budget isn't passed, or if it isn't approved by the town and then not approved by the comptroller's office, then none of this budget goes forward. We would be on a continuation budget in all areas for the next year until this was resolved.
Which means that the raises and everything that we put in there would be null.
That's right.
They would not, the teachers would not be eligible for raises, step increases, all of those things.
Correct.
Which is the part of, for me, that was completely unacceptable. So that necessitated this, and again, thank you for being here. Mr. Benjamin, did you have?
Not yet, I'm just
Okay.
looking this over,
Okay.
but I may have another.
Yeah, sorry, this all happened quick, and I think most of you guys haven't had a chance to look at any of this. But
When is it appropriate to share just general comments from this week?
So again, as long as it's related to any time, as long as it's related to this budget or the process that we've been through since the work session, referencing the budget.
So Dr. Viox, we
Yes.
are, this motion that you've made literally is adopting this resolution specifically, this only affects the budget based off this resolution, only one line item, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
It moves the money that were proposed to increase the compensation of the board members to education/travel. I'm sure it has a much more appropriate name.
okay.
Professional development.
Profession, that's it. It does have a more appropriate name.
Yeah, okay,
It will go to professional development of the board.
okay.
For clarification, if I can.
Yes, sir.
This is like a budget amendment.
Okay.
Since the budget's already been approved, it would be like a budget amendment that we do in October to transfer money within a departmental account
Yeah.
from one source to the other,
Okay.
with no change to the total value of the budget.
Okay.
Which is also typically on our consent agenda, but
Right.
we may look at changing that as well. So, sir?
Well, my comments are just, again, as the new guy, as I shared the other night, this is my first week of dealing with this in the process with ACS, and I just thought I would share a few things.
In the past, it's never been like this, for fairness, just for, so you know, it hasn't.
Hopefully it
been-
won't be like this in the future.
It hasn't, it has never been in the past, so.
Yeah. Well, just 3 points I was going to share today, because I shared a lot the other night. But first of all, I have had my eyes open quite a bit to how small town politics work over the past week. And I must say, I'm not a fan at all. Personally, I'm a fan of listening to understand other points of view, and then us to collaborate from a place of mutual trust and respect to find resolutions or solutions to the challenges that we face. And so this past week, sadly, the actions that were taken put both the mayor and the alderman in a difficult position, as you stated earlier, Dr. Viox, as well as us as a school board. It has not been a fun week for any of us. Just so if anyone watches this later, it has not been fun for anyone. And so I hope going forward that this will serve as a learning experience so we don't end up in this situation again, because none of us want to end up in this spot again. In other words, and no offense to Mr. Waddell, I hope we don't give him another story to write like this past week, but we give you plenty of great stories to write about what's taking place at ACS and in our great community. One other note I wanted to make as well is that I do believe this solution is a no-brainer, what we're doing today, because we have to take care of our teachers and administrators. And truthfully, we all know that this is what we were excited about in the first place. This budget and taking care of them was what we were pumped about. And so the things that have happened over the past few days have clouded that point, and I just wanted to bring it back up tonight and say, let's just celebrate this.
Yeah.
And so we're making the right call. However, I will say that I am someone that personally carries the opinion that both our mayor and aldermen are underpaid for the work that they perform and the leadership they provide for our community, as well as this board. I believe the responsibilities of leadership, and especially in these types of positions like our mayor and aldermen, who are great leaders, as well as all of you, is something that should be valued and cherished as well as supported. And so we can, of course, discuss that as we move forward. Today is all about the teachers. But the last thing I did want to share was in relationship to my comments to Ms. Williams at this last board meeting, because I had a few people reach out to me and wanted to understand my heart in that. And as I shared with them, they honestly came from a place that was responding to her comments to Mr. Waddell in that original article. I did take issue with what she said in relationship to the insinuating that the four of us were trying to hide or deceive. the public in the way we're handling the budget process and these raises that were associated with it. And the only reason why that I reference her leadership as a chairman back in the 1920 budget approval process was not to attack her, but it was just to point out the obvious, that what was happening then was the same as what's happening today.
Yeah.
She did nothing to try to deceive anyone then. No one was trying to deceive anyone today.
Yeah.
She did nothing wrong, and no one up here was trying to do anything wrong. That was the only point I wanted to make about that. So I hope that's clear now. I do want, and I genuinely hope we put all this behind us, and we do move forward to celebrate and support, one, our superintendent, our teachers. We have over 500 staff here, as well as over 5,000 students. We have a lot to celebrate, and I want us to turn the page and move forward. That's where my heart is.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
Anyone else?
So in this motion that we are adopting, it is ACS Resolution 2023-14. Is that correct?
And is the affirmative, is the motion on the floor to take that money out of the compensation area and put it into professional development?
Okay.
Any more discussion? Okay, we'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Without any further discussion, we'll get back to our Saturdays. Thank you guys for being available.
Thank you.